Yeah.
Happy New Year.
Yeah.
I'm so excited to kick off the new year with you by diving into something a little different.
Oh.
We're going to be exploring a New Year's toast
Okay.
from a piece called A Toast to the New Year.
Hmm.
It really caught my eye
Yeah.
because it's layered with some really interesting themes,
Mm-hmm.
hope, joy,
Mm-hmm.
and this whole idea of shared prosperity.
Interesting.
I'm really curious to hear your take on this.
Sure.
But first,
Yeah.
I'd love to get your initial impressions.
Okay.
When you first read this toast,
Uh-huh.
did anything in particular jump out at you?
What immediately struck me
Yeah.
was how this toast goes beyond just your typical cheers
Right.
or Happy New Year.
It's different.
It feels almost like a blueprint
Okay.
for creating a better future.
Interesting.
And it gets really specific
Okay.
about the kind of world the speaker wants.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it uses such vivid imagery
Right.
to get that point across.
Definitely.
Symphony of joy.
Seeds of goodwill.
Yeah.
Even sparkle like jewels.
I like that one.
It definitely sets a hopeful and optimistic tone.
For sure.
But I'm wondering,
Yeah.
is it all just pretty words?
That's a good question.
Or is there a deeper psychological impact
Mhm.
to this kind of language?
That's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
There's a whole field of research
Oh, wow.
dedicated to the psychology of hope.
Really?
And studies show that positive language, like we see here,
Okay.
can actually influence our mindset
Huh.
and our behavior.
Interesting.
It can boost our mood,
Mm-hmm.
increase our motivation,
Wow.
and even make us more resilient when facing challenges.
It's pretty powerful.
So while the toast might seem simple at first,
Yeah.
it's actually tapping into some very powerful psychological forces.
So maybe it's not just about
Right.
sounding nice.
Exactly.
It's about actually setting the stage for positive change.
I think so.
That leads us to another
Yeah.
fascinating aspect of this toast. Okay.
The emphasis on everyone, their families and their friends.
Right.
It's mentioned over and over again.
Several times.
And it makes me think about
Yeah.
the speaker's definition of inclusivity.
Interesting point.
What do you think?
Mm.
Is that circle wide enough, or could it be broadened even further?
I see what you mean.
Yeah.
While it highlights personal connections,
Right.
it does seem to focus on those closest to us.
Exactly.
But then the toast also mentions
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
tapestry of humanity
Yeah,
and
yeah.
the bonds that unite us, which
Yeah.
feels much more expansive.
For sure.
So how do we reconcile those two ideas?
That's what I'm trying to figure out.
I think the speaker is trying to do both,
Okay.
to acknowledge how important our close circles are,
Yeah.
while also emphasizing our connection as humans.
Okay.
It's like saying, yes, cherish your loved ones,
Right.
but also remember that we are all part of something much bigger.
I like that.
This idea of a collective is really central to the message here.
Okay. I'm starting to see how all this fits together.
But
So we have this positive language that can inspire action,
yes.
and this emphasis on individual connection
Uh-huh.
and collective responsibility.
Right.
But the toast also goes beyond just wishing for good things.
It does.
There's a clear call to action.
I agree.
Let us step into this new year.
Mm.
It's like a challenge to go out and build that better future.
It is a challenge.
Wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
It's not about passive hope.
Right.
It's about taking ownership
Yes.
and making things happen.
I like that.
And this brings us to a key concept
Okay.
that we need to unpack.
Let's unpack it.
Shared prosperity.
Big idea.
What does that actually look like in practice?
Good question.
Is it simply about economic well-being?
Like what?
Like everyone having a good job and a comfortable life?
Could be.
Or is there something deeper here?
Uh-huh.
Maybe something about
Yeah.
social connection,
Okay.
a sense of belonging.
Like we talked about earlier.
What are your thoughts?
That's the million-dollar question.
It is.
And I think there are multiple layers to it.
Okay.
But before we dive into those nuances,
Yeah.
I want to get your initial reaction.
Okay.
When you hear the phrase shared prosperity,
Mm-hmm.
what comes to mind?
For me, it evokes this idea of a society where everyone has a chance to not just survive,
Quite.
but thrive,
Mm-hmm.
where everyone has access to the resources
Yes.
and opportunities they need
Uh-huh.
to reach their full potential,
Okay.
regardless of their background
Mm-hmm.
or circumstances.
I like that.
And yes, I think social connection is a big part of that.
It is.
That feeling like you belong,
Yeah.
like you're contributing to something bigger than yourself.
That's powerful.
That's got to be essential for true prosperity.
I think so. You've hit the nail on the head.
Okay.
It's not just about material wealth.
Right.
It's about creating a society where everyone feels valued.
Okay.
and empowered
You're
to
right.
reach their full potential.
I like that.
And you're right.
Yeah.
Social connection is a vital piece of that puzzle.
Makes sense.
There's a lot of research out there
really?
that shows that strong social ties
Yeah.
are crucial
Okay.
for individual well-being
Mm-hmm.
and societal progress.
That makes me think about some of the imagery
Yeah.
that we see in the toast.
Okay.
It talks about families being anchors
Right.
and friends being companions.
Yes.
It even wishes for cherished moments and sparkling memories. So do you think that the speaker's trying to say
What do you mean?
that these personal relationships are important
Yeah.
for achieving this shared prosperity?
It's definitely highlighting how important those bonds are, but I
Yeah.
also think it's
Yeah.
inviting us to look at the quality.
Of the relationships?
Yes.
Okay.
Are they supportive? Are they nurturing? Do they provide a sense of belonging and security?
Interesting.
Because those are the kind of relationships
Yeah.
that can truly empower individuals
Okay.
and strengthen communities.
So it's not just about
Right?
having a lot of friends or a big family.
Exactly.
It's about the quality
Yes.
of those relationships.
I think we can all relate to that, right, listener?
I think so.
Think about a time when you felt truly supported by your community.
Yeah.
Did that support impact your ability to thrive or pursue your goals?
That's a great point.
I'm glad you're bringing the listener in.
Thanks.
And you raise a really important point.
What's that?
The toast focuses heavily on friends and family.
Right.
But what about those
Yeah.
who don't have those traditional support systems?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Does that mean they're excluded from this vision?
Of shared prosperity?
Yeah.
To be honest?
Yeah.
Yeah, that thought crossed my mind too.
Mine too.
But then I noticed a line in the toast
Okay.
that seemed to address this.
Which one?
It says,
Ah.
extending good wishes to all those who cross our paths,
Okay.
near and far,
Mm-hmm.
known and unknown.
Interesting.
What do you make of that?
I think that line is so crucial.
Right.
It expands the scope of inclusivity.
How so?
It suggests that shared prosperity isn't limited to just our close circles,
Okay.
but to all members of society.
So anyway.
It's acknowledging that a truly prosperous society cares for everyone, no matter their family or social connections.
It's like it's saying
Yeah.
that even if we don't know someone personally,
Right.
we still have a responsibility to contribute to a world where they can thrive.
I agree.
That's a beautiful sentiment.
It is.
But how does that translate into action?
Good question.
Does the toast offer any clues?
It does.
But how we can actually build that kind of world?
It definitely does.
Right.
Remember that call to action.
Let us step into this new year.
Yes.
If they do.
I think that's where the rubber meets the road. The toast is challenging us
To do what?
to be active participants
In what?
in creating a more just and equitable world.
Okay.
And it does this by pointing to some key areas
Okay.
where action is needed.
Can you give me an example?
Sure.
What are some of those key areas?
Well, for starters,
Yeah.
the toast explicitly wishes for a world
Hmm.
where everyone feels valued, respected, and loved.
Okay.
And I think that goes beyond just the basic needs.
Like food and shelter.
Yes.
Okay.
It's about addressing deeper human needs
Like what?
for connection, belonging, and dignity.
So it's not just about providing for people's material needs.
Right.
But about creating a society where everyone feels
Yes.
seen, heard, and respected.
Exactly.
And that requires us to confront some of the systemic barriers
Yeah.
that prevent people from fully participating in society.
I agree.
Well, systemic barriers.
It's topic.
That feels like we're getting into some pretty complex territory.
It is complex.
Can you break that down for us?
Sure.
What exactly do you mean by systemic barriers?
Okay.
And how do they relate to this idea of shared prosperity?
You're right, it's complicated.
Yeah.
But the toast, in its subtle way,
Mm.
is inviting us to look at that complexity.
Okay.
When we talk about systemic barriers, we're referring to the ways that policies, institutions, and social norms can create disadvantages.
For certain groups.
Yes.
Okay.
These barriers
Yeah.
can be based on race, gender, socioeconomic status, sexual orientation, disability, and a lot of other factors.
I want so many things.
And these things can prevent people from accessing a lot of things.
Like what?
Education, healthcare, employment, housing, even justice.
Wow, that's a lot.
It is.
So even if we try to be kind and inclusive,
Right.
these larger systems can still get in the way
They can't.
and create obstacles for certain people.
Exactly.
That's why achieving shared prosperity
Mm-hmm.
requires us to look beyond just our individual actions
Uh-huh.
and address these systemic issues
It's about working to create a more equitable playing field.
where everyone has a chance.
Exactly.
Okay, now things are starting to click into place.
God.
We've moved from this beautiful imagery
Right.
and a hopeful language
Yeah.
to a deeper understanding of what it takes
Yes.
to create a more just and prosperous society.
I agree.
But how does the toast suggest we tackle these big systemic issues? It feels a bit daunting, to be honest.
It can be a bit overwhelming when we start to think about how big these challenges really are.
Yeah.
But I think the toast gives us a few hints about where we can start.
Okay.
Remember those phrases
Which ones?
about breaking down barriers and bridging divides?
Oh, yeah.
What do you think the speaker is getting at with those?
I think it means we need to do more.
More than what?
More than just wishing for a better world.
Right.
And actually work to dismantle the systems that cause inequality.
That's what I think, too.
It's like a call to action.
It is.
To challenge the way things are.
To question assumptions.
And fight for change.
And remember, these efforts usually need collaboration and collective action.
So it's not just about individual acts of kindness.
Not just that.
It's about working together
Yes.
to create systemic change.
Exactly.
I'm also noticing something.
What's that?
The toast doesn't just focus on the big systemic issues.
Right.
It also celebrates the small, everyday acts
of
kindness and generosity.
I see that.
Like sharing a meal with those in need or offering a helping hand to a stranger.
Yeah.
Do you think those individual actions contribute to shared prosperity as well?
I think so.
How so?
Small acts of kindness, when many people do them, can have a ripple effect.
Interesting.
Creating a culture of compassion and support.
Okay.
They might not get rid of those big systemic barriers overnight,
Right.
but they can still make a difference in people's lives
I see.
and create a society that is more humane and caring.
And remember that research on the psychology of hope.
Yeah.
These small acts can make people more hopeful and optimistic,
They can.
which can then lead to more action.
It all comes full circle.
So it's a cycle.
Yes.
Individual actions lead to a more hopeful atmosphere,
Right.
which then inspires others to act, leading to greater positive change.
Exactly.
I think that's one of the most powerful messages here.
I agree.
It reminds us that we create a better future.
It doesn't just happen.
And that involves two things.
Like what?
Challenging those systemic barriers and also fostering a culture of kindness and generosity.
On daily lives.
What really resonates with me is that a brighter tomorrow isn't something that just happens.
We have to work for it.
It's something we create.
Through action.
And that involves both challenging systemic barriers
Right.
and being kind and generous every day.
I think you've really captured the message of this toast. It's a call to action.
It is.
An invitation to build a better world.
A more just
and compassionate world.
And as we wrap up this deep dive, I'd like to leave our listener with a final thought.
Okay.
If you were to write your own toast about shared prosperity, what would you say? What actions would you ask people to take?
Hey, that's a great question to think about.
It is.
As we head into the new year.
Cheers to that.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It was my pleasure.
And Happy New Year, everyone.